Before I began this journey, I was like a ship adrift in a vast ocean without a rudder. My life was a series of passive reactions to the waves of external circumstances, the waves of emails, the waves of deadlines, the waves of other people's demands. Each morning, I was awakened not by my own will, but by the absolute fear of being late. I would rush out of my house like a fugitive, starting the day with an empty fuel tank and a feeling that I was always one step behind life itself. I realized I was living in a strange era. We are connected to the whole world through a screen, yet disconnected from ourselves. The digital noise drowned out the quiet wisdom within, and I had become a passenger of my own ship, passively watching it drift toward an unknown destination. That was when I decided to stage a quiet rebellion, not to become more productive, but to find my rudder again. I decided to confront my greatest enemy, the snooze button. I would try for 30 days at 5 a.m. Week 1. Storms in uncharted waters. On day 1, the 5 a.m. alarm sounded like a stone thrown straight through the quiet glass of my dreams, shattering them to pieces. I sat both upright, but my mind did not. It was like an old computer trying to boot up a corrupted operating system. My abdominal screen was just a jumble of error messages and static. My entire body was like a city in revolt. Every cell screamed for a return to bed. I sat in the darkness of my room, feeling as if I was the only person alive on a sleeping planet. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was thick, and it exposed the emptiness within me. What on earth are you doing? The voice of doubt boomed like the distorted loudspeaker. It wasn't just laziness, it was fear. The fear of facing a long day, the fear of facing my unfinished goals, and above all, the fear of facing myself in this terrifying silence. The following days were a struggle with the demon called habit. My body, long accustomed to being coddled, now protested violently. I had headaches, I was irritable, and I felt the fatigue that seeped deep into my bones. On day 4, fed up with sitting still, I put on my shoes and stepped outside. The cold morning air was like a slap in the face that woke me up. And in that moment, on the empty street, I saw something different. I was no longer a prisoner in my room. I was an explorer, discovering a world I never knew existed. The fog in my head seemed to lift just a little, enough for me to see the path ahead. Week 2. Sighting the lighthouse. Entering the second week, the storm began to subside. The fog in my mind was lifted a little more this morning. The silence was no longer an enemy. It became a huge blank canvas, waiting for me to paint the first strokes of my day. On day 9, I truly felt it. I made a pot of tea, sat down, and read a book. This time the words didn't dance before my eyes. They went straight into my mind, clear and coherent. It was as if after days of searching for a signal and static, I had finally tuned into a crystal clear frequency. In that moment, I understood. The chaos outside stems from the noise within, and by creating external silence, I was allowing my internal world to reorganize itself. The rewards began to blossom. I completed my work with astonishing focus. The feeling of finishing an important task before most people were even awake didn't just bring confidence, it felt like I had from the helm of my ship for the first time. I could turn it gently and feel the vessel begin to shift according to my will. I was no longer being tossed by the waves, I was learning to ride them. However, choosing a different course also meant loneliness. I had to turn down evening gatherings, those spontaneous moments of connection with friends. The fear of missing out, the fear of being seen as the weird one, began to gnaw at me. But then I realized perhaps what I was missing out on was just noise. What I was gaining was something far more precious. The time and space to truly listen to myself. Week 3. Charting a new course. The third week was the architect's phase. I was no longer a sailor battling the storm. I was beginning to redesign my ship. I understood that willpower is like the wind, sometimes strong, sometimes weak. I couldn't rely on it alone. I needed a system, a solid framework. Every evening, I prepared everything for the next morning. It was like a captain checking his chart and compass before setting sail. These small actions eliminated hesitation in the morning, turning the act of waking up into a series of natural reflexes. On day 21 was a memorable milestone. I opened my eyes before the alarm. The path that I had tried to blaze every day through the dense jungle of old habits was now clear and solid under my feet. My body and mind were no longer in conflict. They had found harmony. The biggest lesson of this week came from a night of indulgence. On day 22, I stayed up late watching a movie. Next morning, my ship was tossed about as if it was about to capsize. I realized that discipline isn't an egg you drop once and you're set. It's like constantly adjusting the shells to catch a favorable wind. One out of distraction can push you far off your course. Week 4, a new horizon. The final week was no longer a battle. It was a dance. I woke up gently and stepped into my morning hours as if entering a sacred space. It was a control room of my life. The biggest change wasn't in productivity, but in my internal architecture. Before I went faced with a problem, I would often get caught in a spiral of anxiety. Now, the quiet time in the morning gave me an anchor point. Like a lighthouse, it helped me determine my position in the sea of emotions. I could see problems from a distance, observe them objectively, and calmly chart a course to a solution. I had found the world's off switch. For 2 hours each morning, I disconnected from the external noise to reconnect with my internal command center. I realized that time doesn't just slip away like sand through your fingers. Time is a space that can be filled. And I had chosen to fill it with intention, peace, and growth. On day 30, I studied the finish line. My ship was no longer adrift. It might not be the fastest or most magnificent yacht, but it had a captain, me. The 30-day journey wasn't about reaching some treasure island. The journey was about finding the rudder. An invitation. I won't promise you that waking up early will solve all your problems, but if you feel like a ship without a rudder, tossed about by the waves of life, if you are tired of the never-ending noise of the modern world, I invite you to stage your own quiet rebellion. Try waking up at 5 a.m. just for 3 days. Don't try to be productive. Just sit there in the silence and listen. Then tell me, what did you see in the silence?